What's up, pizza people? It's Jesse from Patio Pizza, and today we're going to recreate Domino's pizza. Not because I think it's great pizza, but because I think there's lessons to be learned from making all kinds of pizza. If you think about it like trying to learn music, you can learn a ton from studying the greats. There's a ton to be learned from Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles, but there's also a lot to learn from Britney Spears. So if you think of Tony Giuliani as John Lennon, then Domino's is Britney. That doesn't make them less, it just makes them different. And there's still plenty of lessons to learn from both. And with that, let's get going. First things first, let's talk about what makes a Domino's pizza distinct. It's not the artisan crust or gourmet toppings, let's be real. It's the consistency, the signature flavor profile, and, love it or hate it, the garlic butter crust. It's pizza engineered for the masses, and that's exactly what makes it fascinating to recreate. We'll start with the dough. Domino's lists all of their ingredients online, so between that and some videos I found of the Domino's dough making process, I am pretty sure this recipe is close to authentic. This recipe makes enough dough for two 16-inch pizzas. In a large mixing bowl or stand mixer, add 500 grams of flour. This is an enriched high gluten flour. It has additives already in it to enhance gluten development and fermentation. But it might also give you cancer. So if that's not your thing, then a good high protein bread flour will be just fine. To that, add 5 grams of instant yeast, and then I'm adding 5 grams of diastatic malt powder. This is going to aid in browning and speed up fermentation. Then we add 18 grams of salt, mix the dry ingredients real quick, and then I'm going to add 378 grams of room temperature water. I'll add half to start, and then I'll give it a little mix, and then I'll add the rest and mix it again. Once it gets shaggy, I'm going to add 20 grams of olive oil. Domino's uses canola oil, but I'm not that hardcore. Just keep mixing and kneading until a rough dough is formed, cover and rest for 10 minutes. Then knead for an additional 5 minutes, cover again, and rest for 1 hour at room temperature. Then divide into 2 equal pieces and shape them into nice tight bowls. I'm going to place those into an oiled container, cover, and refrigerate for 24 hours until I'm ready to use. Now let's tackle the sauce. I'm going to start with a 28-ounce can of high-quality crushed tomato and a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. Mix those up in a saucepan, get it up to a simmer, and add a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 cup of sugar, and all my dry seasonings, which are salt, Italian seasoning, and red pepper flakes with a little garlic powder. Simmer that on low for 10 minutes and then cool before using. It should be a thick, slightly sweet, and tangy pizza sauce. For the cheese, we're going to use a blend of 75% low-moisture mozzarella and 25% shredded provolone. This should get us pretty close to the blend that Domino's uses, but the quality will be a lot higher. They can't even technically call their cheese cheese. It's loaded with anti-caking agents and chemicals. It's absolute trash, but by making it in a lab, they get it for cheap, and that's the main reason they can keep their pizzas budget-friendly. We aren't cheaping out on the cheese. Now finally, the garlic butter. You can fancy this up more if you like, but I think it's not necessary. Toss a half of a stick of unsalted butter into a saute pan on low heat, melt it down, add a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Mix it all up, don't cook it for too long, we don't want it to brown, and there you go. Okay, the time has come to build a pizza. Domino's uses straight cornmeal to stretch their pizzas in. I find this odd, but we're going to give it a try. Once you stretch out your dough, you want to lay it down on a baking screen. This is essential to recreating the Domino's texture. This is a higher quality screen from Lloyd's Pans. There's a link in the description if you want your own. Then we lay the sauce on thick. On top of that, we're going to add 13 ounces of our cheese blend, according to some Domino's training materials I found on the internet. And then Domino's cooks their pizza on a conveyor oven at 600 degrees for about 6 minutes to get a good bake. We don't have this option, so we're going to cook at our max temperature. My oven is 550 degrees. This will take about 10 minutes for my pizza to fully cook. If you have a convection oven, use that and reduce the time by a few minutes. Alrighty, that is looking pretty good. Let's slice this thing up and then add that garlic butter. Okay, here's the side-by-side. Nailed the crust. I think the sauce is pretty close too. My cheese is way better, but it is what it is. The cornmeal was surprisingly okay. I actually enjoyed the texture on my pizza. The other thing I liked about this experiment was the cheese blend. I actually never used provolone on pizza before. I also think the diastatic malt is a nice addition when you're cooking in a home oven. It helps with browning. I did not like how the dough handled. It was super tight even after a long rest. I think that might be from the enhanced flour. However, that didn't really translate to overly chewy crust, which was surprising. The crust was actually quite tender and tasty. Overall, it's not my favorite pizza ever, but I think that I did learn some lessons that will prove invaluable in my future of pizza making. So with that, thanks for watching, and I love you lots.